I was carrying a paper bag of groceries up the narrow stairwell when it happened. The building always smelled faintly of detergent and someone else's dinner, and the light above the landing flickered like it had been dying for years. That was when I realized 3 women from the building had stopped in the same place, at the same time. The first was Mrs. Khan from the 2nd floor, arms crossed, telling a long story about her son who'd just gotten into some university abroad. The second was Lila, a girl I knew only by the sound of her shoes, always clicking down the hallway past midnight. And the third, her. She wasn't saying anything. She was just there, leaning her shoulder against the peeling wall, half listening, half somewhere else. She lived directly across from me. I knew that much. Mid-40s, maybe. She carried herself differently from the others. Slower, steadier, like she'd learned not to rush even if everyone else was late. She had this way of holding her keys in her palm, not dangling them, just keeping them closed, like the weight mattered. When they noticed me hovering below them on the stairs, Mrs. Khan said, "Oh, here he is, the new one," like I'd been summoned. Lila gave me a short nod, barely a greeting. But the third woman, she lifted her eyes at me, just a glance that lasted too long. And in that instant, all 3 women were around me. Mrs. Khan talking, Lila laughing at something half funny, and her silent, but the one I couldn't stop looking at. It was nothing, just neighbors sharing the same space. And yet I went back to my apartment that night and set the grocery bag down too hard, Ken's rolling out onto the counter, because my mind was stuck on that look. The next morning I saw her again. Not in the stairwell this time, but downstairs in the laundry room. She was folding a towel, slowly, like she was thinking about something else. "Morning," I said. She glanced up. "Morning." Her voice was low, a little rough, like she didn't speak it much this early. I pulled my phone out, pretending to check something, but really just needing to do something with my hands. I typed half a message to a friend I hadn't texted in weeks, then deleted it. "Machine takes coins," she said after a beat, nodding toward the one I was trying to start. "Oh, right." I fumbled in my pocket. She gave a small smile, just the corner of her mouth, and went back to folding. That was all. A reminder about coins. And yet, it sat with me the whole day, longer than the conversation deserved. At night, I heard her through the wall. Not words, just the muffled rhythm of a kettle clicking off, cupboards opening, the faint scrape of a chair on tile. It was absurd that such small sounds could feel like company, but they did. I wrote out another text, this time to nobody in particular. "Do you ever notice the people right next to you more than the ones you're supposed to?" Then I deleted that too. I tried to sleep, but the thought kept circling. Her hand folding the towel, her eyes catching mine on the stairwell, that half smile. And then, sometime past midnight, my phone buzzed. A message I wasn't expecting. It wasn't from a friend. It was from her. The message was short. Just, "You left your detergent downstairs." I stared at it longer than I should have. The timestamp read 12:41 a.m. She could have ignored it, left the bottle there for me to find tomorrow. Instead, she'd carried it up 2 flights of stairs, set it outside my door, and sent the text. When I opened my door, the hallway was empty. Only the detergent sat there like proof. I typed back thanks and deleted it, then typed appreciate it and deleted that too. In the end, I didn't reply. I just picked it up and carried it inside, holding it tighter than necessary. The next time we spoke, it was over tea. I'd run into her in the lobby, arms full of groceries. Without thinking, I offered to help. She hesitated, then said, "All right, but just the bag with the milk. It's heavy." Her apartment smelled faintly of citrus and something floral, diffuser, maybe. She set the bags down and asked, almost as an afterthought, "Tea?" I said yes before realizing I wasn't supposed to linger. While the kettle boiled, she leaned against the counter, arms folded. "I've lived here 12 years. I thought about moving once, but..." She let the thought trail off. "But?" I asked. She tilted her head, considering. "When you get divorced, you think you need to change everything. But sometimes it's easier to just keep the walls you already know." I nodded, though I didn't know what divorce felt like. Still, the way she said it made me imagine her alone in this same kitchen. Same walls, night after night. The kettle clicked off. She poured, slid a mug toward me. Our fingers didn't touch, but the space between them felt too deliberate, like both of us had noticed. I told her about moving in, how I didn't know anyone here yet, how I spent too much time scrolling my phone without sending anything. "You're young," she said quietly, not unkindly. "That's normal. You'll find your people." Her words should have been casual, but they pressed deeper than they should. I wanted to say, maybe I already did. Instead, I just nodded. We drank in silence for a while. She stirred her tea even after the sugar had dissolved, the spoon clinking softly against porcelain. I folded the napkin she'd handed me into smaller and smaller squares, then unfolded it again. It was nothing, really, just tea in her kitchen. And yet, every pause seemed loaded, like we were both aware of something we hadn't agreed to name. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. "Thanks for the help," she said. "Thanks for the tea." She gave a faint smile, the kind you give when you're holding something back. And then, as I stepped into the hallway, her hand brushed lightly against my arm. Not an accident. Not quite deliberate either. It was the smallest touch. But I carried it with me longer than the taste of tea, longer than her words about divorce, longer than anything else. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally was late again when I saw her. The building's hallway was dim, only the exit sign humming red. She had a laundry basket balanced on her hip, loose strands of hair falling from a clip. "Hey," I said too quietly. She glanced up. "Hey." Her voice carried the tiredness of the day. I reached for the stairwell door, holding it open. She passed by, close enough that I caught the faint citrus scent again. Close enough that my hand tightened on the handle, resisting the urge to follow. Downstairs, she struggled with the machine. The coin slot jammed. I knelt beside her before thinking. "Here, let me." She moved back slightly, arms folded across her chest, watching as I jiggled the coin loose. Clinked down at last. "You've got a knack for it," she said. I shrugged. "Lucky guess." Her laugh was short, almost reluctant, but it lingered in the air between us. Then silence. Long enough that I noticed the small things again, her fingers tapping lightly on the laundry basket rim, her eyes flicking toward the doorway like she was checking for someone else. I wanted to ask if she ever got lonely here, but before I could, footsteps came down the stairs. Lila, her heels sharp against the tile. She looked at me, then at her, then back. "You two doing laundry?" Lila asked, voice half a tease. "Apparently," she replied, not meeting my eyes. I shoved my hands into my pockets, suddenly aware of how it must look. Two neighbors standing too close in the wrong kind of quiet. Lila loaded her machine quickly, humming something off-key, but the interruption broke the thread. She and I no longer looked at each other the same way in that moment. Something cautious slipped in. Later, in the elevator, just the two of us again. Neither spoke. The fluorescent light flickered, buzzing faintly. I shifted my weight. She adjusted the strap of the basket. "I should," she started, then stopped. I nodded, though she hadn't finished. "Yeah." We both smiled, faint, brittle smiles. The doors opened too soon. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying how she'd looked at the doorway, how quickly she'd gone quiet when Lila appeared. Was it regret, embarrassment, or just caution? I sat at my desk, staring at the blank notes app, my fingers hovering. "Do you want this too?" I typed, then deleted it. A week later, she knocked on my door. Not with words, just a sound, soft and hesitant. When I opened, she stood there holding a borrowed book. "Thought this was yours," she said. "It's not." "Oh." She hesitated, shifting the book in her hand. "Well, I should." Her voice caught, and for a moment, neither of us moved. Her eyes flicked to my mouth, then away. Fast. I almost stepped forward. Almost. But she pressed the book into my hands instead, fingers brushing mine. "Good night," she said quickly, retreating down the hall. The book was still warm from her touch. And I stood there, door half open, heart racing from something that hadn't quite happened. Why saw me. We ended up walking back from the corner store together. Not planned, just timing. She carried a paper bag tucked against her side, and I had nothing but my hands in my pockets. It was almost evening, the sky low and heavy, the kind of gray that made the street lamps flicker on early. For a while we just walked, steps uneven, her pace slower than mine. "You're quiet tonight," she said. "Am I?" She gave me a sidelong look. "More than usual." I wanted to say I've been thinking about you all week, but instead, just tired. She nodded, though I could tell she didn't believe it. We reached the bench in front of the building. She set her bag down, sat, and exhaled like she'd been holding something in. I sat too, keeping just enough distance to make it look casual. "Do you ever feel—" she started, then stopped. Her fingers worked at the paper edge of the bag. "Like you're doing this wrong?" "Life, I mean," I swallowed. "Most days." Her laugh was soft, almost surprised. "Good. I thought it was just me." She leaned back, looking up at the sky. Her profile caught the dim light, and for a second I saw her differently. Not just as the woman across the hall, but as someone balancing years of unspoken weight. "I shouldn't—" she trailed off, shook her head. "Shouldn't what?" I asked. She glanced at me, eyes steady this time. "Be sitting here with you, talking like this." The words lodged in my chest. I wanted to ask why, but I already knew. Age, neighbors, the thousand invisible lines that separated us. Instead, I said, "Do you want me to go?" Her silence stretched. She didn't look away. Finally, "No, that's the problem." My hand tightened on the bench edge. I thought about every almost. Her hand brushing mine, her eyes flicking toward my mouth, the silence in her kitchen. "You think I don't notice?" she said quietly. "Notice what?" Her lips curved in something between a smile and a wince. "The way you look at me." The air thickened. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. My heart pressed too hard against my ribs. "I'm too old for this," she whispered, almost to herself. I turned toward her. "For what?" Her breath caught. She held my gaze, not flinching this time. And for a moment, the distance between us felt impossibly small. Like if either of us leaned the wrong way, the whole balance would tip. The bag rustled under her hands as she stood abruptly, breaking the spell. "I should put this away," she said. I nodded, but neither of us moved right away. At the doorway, she paused, looked back once. Her mouth opened slightly, like she wanted to ask something, but the words never came. The silence left me with my own unspoken question, hanging heavy between us. The next few days I didn't see her. Not in the hallway, not in the laundry room, not even through the thin walls late at night. The silence felt thicker than usual, like she'd turned her life down low, so I couldn't hear it anymore. At first I thought it was coincidence, different schedules. But on the fourth day, when I spotted her in the lobby and she turned quickly toward the mailboxes, I knew. She was pulling back. "Evening," I said, forcing casual. She looked up, startled, then gave a polite smile. "Evening. Nothing more." No pause, no small talk. She slid a letter into her bag and left without waiting for me to catch up. The building felt emptier without her orbit. I found myself lingering in places I shouldn't. The stairwell, the lobby bench, like maybe she'd appear if I waited long enough. One night I did see her. Through her open doorway, faintly lit. She was speaking to someone. A man, tall, gray at the temples. His laugh carried down the hall. I slowed, heart kicking hard, before hurrying past to my own door. The next morning, the book she'd given me, still not mine, was left outside my apartment. No note, just placed there like returning evidence. I thought about knocking, asking, but the words felt too heavy, too presumptuous. Instead, I avoided her, or maybe we avoided each other, passing in the stairwell without eye contact. Doors closing just a little too quickly. The absence settled into me strangely. I wasn't devastated, not broken, just suspended. I kept reaching for my phone, writing messages I never sent. Did I do something wrong? Deleted. Was he someone important? Deleted. I can wait. Deleted. Every draft disappeared before my thumb could press send. On the fifth night, I saw her again. She was sitting alone this time, in the laundry room, elbows on her knees, staring at the turning machine. A paper cup of tea sat cooling beside her. She didn't look up when I entered. I wanted to sit beside her. Say nothing, just be there. But my feet stopped short. Something in her posture told me, not tonight. I loaded my clothes quickly, hands fumbling with the coins. When the machine hummed to life, I turned once more. She still hadn't moved. I left without a word. Back upstairs, I sat in the dark of my apartment, the spin of her washing machine echoing faintly through the floor. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. It happened in the hallway again, late at night. I was locking my door when hers opened across the way. She froze, keys in hand. I did too. The air between us felt like it had been waiting. "You're up late," she said. Her voice sounded steadier than her eyes. "So are you." She almost smiled, then sighed, leaning against the frame of her doorway. "We can't keep doing this." My throat tightened. Doing what? Her gaze met mine finally, fully. This. Waiting for the other one to say something. Pretending it doesn't matter when it clearly does. The words hit harder than any silence. I stepped forward, then stopped halfway, unsure if I was supposed to close the distance or hold it. I began, then faltered. "I thought you didn't want me to." She looked down, fiddling with her keys. "I don't. That's the problem." Her laugh was soft, tired. "You're 20-something. You should be chasing people your own age, not—" She cut herself off. "Not you," I asked quietly. Her eyes lifted to mine again, sharp with something unsaid. I let the pause stretch before I said it. "But it's you." She closed her eyes, leaning her head against the doorframe like she needed its weight. "You don't know what you're asking for," she murmured. "Maybe not. But I know what I feel when I see you." Her hand tightened around the keys until the metal clinked. I thought she might shut the door right then. Instead, she stepped into the hallway, closing the space between us until only a breath separated us. "Do you know what this costs me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't answer. I just let the silence sit, heavy but true. She searched my face for a long time. Her hand twitched once at her side, like she almost reached for me. Almost. Then she laughed again. Low, almost breaking. "God, you're too young to understand any of this." "Then explain it," I said. Her mouth opened, closed. For a second, the hallway was nothing but her breathing and the hum of the ceiling light. Finally, she shook her head and whispered, "I don't have the words." I took the smallest step closer. "Then don't use them." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she let herself smile. Unsteady, but real. It wasn't an answer, not really. But it was enough to feel like the waiting had broken. Her hand brushed mine, light as a question. And I answered it by not pulling away. "Okay," I whispered. Her nod was almost imperceptible. "Okay." Time didn't change in a sudden sweep. It shifted in quiet increments. A week passed, then another. What had once been hesitation in the hallway became habit. Her door opening just after mine in the mornings, both of us heading down the stairs together. She carried her thermos of tea, I carried my black coffee. At 8:47 a.m., without ever planning it, we found ourselves on the same bench outside the building, waiting for the day to start. We didn't call it anything. We didn't need to. Some nights she cooked more than she needed and left a plate for me. Other nights I helped her fix a light bulb or carry groceries. The small exchanges became their own language. She still looked away sometimes, like guilt hadn't entirely left her, and I still caught myself doubting, wondering how long this would last, what others might say if they noticed. But the doubts softened with every repetition of these quiet routines. Once, she laughed at something I said about the flickering stairwell light. Really laughed, head back, unguarded. The sound stayed with me longer than it should have. Another time, I found her waiting outside my door, holding 2 mugs. "Couldn't sleep," she said. "No explanation needed. It wasn't perfect. She worked long hours. I had nights when loneliness still pressed in. Sometimes we went days speaking little more than morning and night. But I noticed something. My phone no longer filled with unsent drafts. The pauses weren't empty anymore. They were shared. One evening, as the sun set low across the building's bricks, we sat on the same bench again. She sipped her tea, I drank my coffee gone lukewarm. "Strange," she said softly. "What is? How this feels normal." I smiled. "It doesn't to me." She glanced at me then, not with the caution I'd seen before, but with something steadier. "It will." Through the thin walls at night, I still heard her kettle click off, the cupboards, the scrape of a chair. But now, instead of imagining her life, I knew pieces of it. Sometimes I was in the room when the chair scraped back. Sometimes she was in mine, folding a napkin into smaller and smaller squares before laughing at herself. It wasn't a grand story. It was just ours. Looking back, I don't remember the exact moment the waiting ended. Maybe it was her hand brushing mine on the bench. Maybe it was when she knocked softly on my door past midnight. Maybe it was simpler than that. Just the first time she didn't turn away in the hallway. All I know is, by the end, it felt like something had quietly chosen us. And when I think about it now, I don't think of the first look or the first touch. I think of that bench, 8:47 a.m., her thermos, my coffee, and the silence that didn't need filling. Because that was the moment I understood. She had seen me, and I had stayed. Sparkles, did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?